Hey y'all, so you guys have been exploring this peppered moth phenomenon where we've talked about how evolution takes a long time, but this happened in like 50 years, and that change isn't supposed to happen that fast. So we've been studying why that happened, and now I'm going to bring everything together. I've been hiding bits and pieces for you. You guys have been connecting it together slowly but surely. You've made some awesome observations. I'm going to tell you the full story now. So, before the 1800s, you've got these moths. They're called peppered moths. Typically, the peppered moth is this color right here. It's white with some black spots. And that's advantageous to this peppered moth because it camouflages into these trees. These are birch trees. And so it camouflages. And when you get a predator that wants to eat these moths, you can't really see the moth that's camouflaged, right? But in this moth population, you have some moths that have a mutation. And remember, a mutation just means something kind of goes wrong when the animal is forming, it's being born. It has to do with genetics. You can look that up if you want. I'm not going to go over it in detail, but a mutation happens, and sometimes a moth is born all black. And that's not very advantageous if your survival depends on camouflaging, right? And so these birds would be able to pick off these black moths very easily because they didn't really blend in. And so what you get is you get this phenomenon where these peppered moths, the ones that are white with black spots, the ones that are able to camouflage, they blend in, they don't get picked off by predators. They're able to survive, they're able to make it to the age where they can reproduce, and when they reproduce, they pass their traits on to their kids. And what is that trait? They pass on that white with kind of a black spotted color. Meanwhile, these black moths, they don't really survive because they can't really blend in, so they get picked off pretty easily. So there's not too many of them in the population, which means there's not too many of them to pass along their traits to the kids. And so you get this phenomenon where in the first generation you've got like maybe this ratio of colors, and then further and further down, just the white with the black spots. It's more advantageous. They're able to survive better. They don't get picked off by predators, so they become more popular in the population, right? Because the trait helps them survive. Now, what happened around 1800s was the Industrial Revolution. And the Industrial Revolution, if you don't remember, is basically where we started using a lot of machinery as a society. And that machinery pumped out a lot of smoke. And the smoke from the Industrial Revolution had a lot of what we call soot. And soot stains stuff. And so if you get a tree stained in soot, this is what it looks like. It turns completely black. So what happens when the trees turn black? Well, originally, this white peppered moth was able to blend in because of the birch trees, but now the trees are black. And remember, we have some moths that had some mutations before they were born. They made them born black. And so now these black moths have the advantage. And so what you get is the opposite effect, where the black moths are able to survive. They're able to survive to the reproduction age, and then they're able to pass along those traits to their children. And so you see this pattern, you see this pattern through the generations of more and more black moths being in the population because that is a trait that helps these black moths survive because they can camouflage and they can pass their traits onto their children. And so you get more and more black moths. And that's the shift that happened. So let's bring it all together. This whole process of what we just went through, it's called natural selection. It's the process whereby organisms better adapted to their environment tend to survive and produce more offspring. And so we see this black moth. It's better adapted to survive to its environment because of camouflage. Because of that, it survives, it reproduces, and it passes that trait along to its offspring. And that's natural selection. That's the mystery of the peppered moths. I hope you guys enjoyed learning this stuff. I hope you enjoyed exploring it. We're going to talk about more of this next week, but I will see you all on Wednesday. I hope you have an awesome weekend.